Chicago-born Robert Francis Prevost has been announced as the new Pope. He'll be known as Leo XIV, and he's the first American leader of the Catholic Church. This is the live view of St. Peter's Square as Catholics around the world contemplate how the Church's next chapter will unfold. The US and UK announce a trade deal, the first by the Trump administration in the fallout of their tariff wars.
And President Trump calls for a 30-day unconditional ceasefire in Ukraine after a phone call with his Ukrainian counterpart. The co-founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates, says he'll give away almost his entire fortune over the next 2 decades, then close down his philanthropic foundation. He's earmarked $200 billion for the world's poorest, saying he did not intend to die rich. He added that he wanted to help stop newborn babies, children and mothers dying of preventable causes, in what's being seen as a rebuke to President Trump. The Gates Foundation has already given away $100 billion in its 25-year existence. But the decision to donate his wealth and close the foundation is a change of course for Bill Gates.
VE Day commemorations draw to a close with a concert at Horse Guards Parade. Today marks Liberation Day in the Channel Islands, 80 years since the end of Nazi occupation.
And it was a hero's welcome home for the first Chinese player to win the World Snooker Championship. Zhao Xingtong, who's 28, was absolutely mobbed as he returned to Shenzhen after making history with his victory over Mark Williams in the final at the Crucible. Now, snooker bosses are hoping his success will help them in their push to get the sport into the Olympics. Maybe they're thinking in 7 years' time. It didn't quite make the cut at Paris or Tokyo, but maybe Australia.
Now, it's been 80 years since Thomas the Tank Engine and his friends first appeared in children's books before their runaway success on screen.
To mark the anniversary, a previously unseen episode of the television series, narrated by Ringo Starr, has been brought back to life.
Friday morning, let's have a look at some of the front pages of the papers for you now, and many, of course, focusing on the selection of Robert Prevost as the first Pope from the United States. Telegraph's headline you can see there, from Chicago to the Vatican.
In God We Trust is the Times' headline, a reference to the motto of the USA. The paper devotes much of its front page to a picture of the new Pope, who's taken the name Leo in his first appearance on a balcony above St. Peter's Square. Now, the Daily Mail is leading on the US-UK trade deal, which was announced yesterday. The paper says it was made by Brexit and says it's a bid to save the British car industry, which had been subject to heavy tariffs.
And the Metro has a picture of the King meeting veterans at VE Day commemorations yesterday, saying their sacrifice will never be forgotten.
Today at 1, a guilty verdict for the 2 men who cut down the world-famous Sycamore Gap tree. The iconic landmark near Hadrian's Wall was more than 150 years old, but its destruction in just 3 minutes was filmed in the middle of the night. Daniel Graham and Adam Carruthers will be sentenced in July. Also on the programme, his first Mass as Pope, Leo XIV, tells the cardinals who elected him he hopes to bring light to what he calls the dark nights of this world. What will these tariff changes mean to us? Businesses across the UK call for clarity on the new trade deal with the US. A BBC bargain hunt arts expert pleads guilty to charges related to financing a terror group.
One day, Thomas was at the junction when Gordon shuffled in with some trucks.
8 years of adventures with Thomas the Tank Engine, an unseen episode narrated by Ringo Starr, offers a new story on Sodor to mark the big day.
I invite you to recognize the marvels that the Lord has done.
The new Pope, Leo XIV, holds his first Mass as head of the Catholic Church, saying he wants to counter a lack of faith. The former bargain hunt expert, Ajuko Ojiri, pleads guilty to not disclosing art sales to a man suspected of financing terrorism. And the rare moon dust being studied by British scientists for the first time. What could it tell us about how the solar system was formed?